Hi, this is Gerrit again. Today I would like to talk about the JBang catalog we created at Neo4j to get you up to speed to interact with Neo4j and import some data. So how did this all happen? We saw this tweet by Bruno Borges at Microsoft that they provide their own JBang catalog. And we said, okay, that's cool. We can provide an easy form to start a Minecraft instance, but we can for sure create tools that will help you to play with a Neo4j instance. So we thought what might be good tools to create. And we came up with a list of tools we think that might be helpful to get your first steps into the Neo4j world or to have some everyday helper at hand. If you have JBang installed on your machine, you can query the Neo4j catalog and it will provide you the scripts we prepared for you. Will look into the repository if you haven't installed this and fetch a new one. Be sure to always upgrade your catalog that you get the latest versions. What's in there? First of all, we have a Cypher execution shell. That's basically the Cypher shell you get when you would install or extract the binaries that comes with the database itself on your machine. But there might be reasons you do not really want to download it, or etc. So we get direct access to the Cypher shell execution. Then we have some formatting for Cypher. It will take a Cypher string, analyze it, and return a pretty printed Cypher. Hello Neo4j is a command that gives you some statistics around the database versions, how many nodes are in there, and how many relationships. Then we have two migration tools. That's Liquibase Neo4j and Neo4j migrations. They are pretty complex, so I would advise you to read those documentation first before you try those tools out. We will see in the end how they get called, and maybe it's also a good idea for you how you could add some tooling to your very own catalog. And last but not least, we have a relational to Neo4j importer. It's a simple importer, so it just takes the tables, coins them as the labels for the nodes, and all the rows will get converted into nodes. Speaking of which, I have two container running. The first one is the Postgres that we use for the example in a bit, and the other one is my Neo4j 5 container. So assuming everything runs smoothly, we can now check some statistics from the database. Of course, we have to connect to the database by providing password and user. And we can see, okay, the database is pretty much empty. Just to confirm that we haven't missed anything, or maybe the tool is not buggy, we could also verify this for ourselves. So we use the Cypher tooling. Connect to the database and look for all the nodes that are in there. So there are no nodes. That means that there cannot be any relationships in there. So we have a clean state of the database. We could populate the database with some data. For this, we use the RDBMS2 Neo4j tool. But first, let's have a look into the database that's running. So I use the PG CLI for this. Connect with the default user to the default database. Just need to provide the password, the correct password. And we can then say, okay, I want to select all the books that I have in the database. So 2 books as an example here. And where a book is, there is also an author. So we have also authors in there. Let's try to import those. For this, we are using, as I said, the RDBMS2 Neo4j tool. So we can just say RDBMS2 Neo4j. Then I go through my history and have the correct JDBC connection string. We connect to the Postgres that's running on my machine with the default database, the default user, and I just have to alter the password. So the password is secret right now. Then I provide the credentials for the Neo4j instance again, and I tell the script which tables I want to get mapped. We can see that there are 3 nodes has been created. This means probably it's a book and the author. Just to verify this, I have 2 options right now. First of all, I can, of course, say I want to call the hello Neo4j script again. It also says I have 3 nodes in my database. Of course, we can also use the Cypher command, just to be really sure what's in there, what kind of nodes. Did the nodes get converted correctly, etc. So we select all the nodes again, and we can see we have the author and 2 books. Perfect. But looking at the database itself, we can see if we're issuing this query here, that this data is somehow disconnected. That's typically not what we would assume in a graph database. We want to have graphs, right? And we can really simply make a connection between the author and the 2 books. For this, I'm still in the Cypher Shell. I could, for example, map the author and the book and create a relationship between them. Keep in mind that this just works right now because I have 1 author that has written all the books. So if I would have multiple authors, this statement will create a relationship between all of them. That's typically not what you want to achieve, but we want, and for our small example, this works perfectly fine. So it created 2 relationships, probably the relationships. We assume that the 1 author has written the first book and the second book. We verify this now just visually by issuing the query again, and we can see now we have a graph. Perfect. This is what we have for interacting with the database. But we have seen that the catalog also provides this format Cypher statement. And this is a pretty nice tool. So it makes use of parts of our Cypher DSL to pass the incoming Cypher and then print it at the end. And you can use this tooling also in a pipe of commands. Given that I have something like a bad Cypher statement file that contains somebody who does not know how to use caps, I just want to return something like an title. And we have here something return. And okay, that's really ugly written, but you will see the result in a bit. If we have written this, we can just cat the file, pipe it into the format Cypher tool, and for example, pipe this out to another file. That's good for us because we can now just have a diff on both files and see how it was formatted. So that's typically a good idea. Maybe if you consume manually logged Cypher statements, for example, and you want to have something that you can visually compare. I promised you to also give you a sneak peek into the both migration tools. So we have for once Liquibase, Neo4j here in place. So it just starts also then the command line version of Liquibase. The very same for Neo4j migrations. In this case, we also provide CLI, and you can call this tool. It will download Neo4j migrations and then pass the parameters on to the original tooling. So it's a shortcut for you, and you don't have to install anything manually. You can leave it to JBang for you to manage dependencies and also give a little trust in us that we update those libraries for the best user experience. And I hope you can find your first steps with Neo4j this way. I hope you have fun. Try this out. Give feedback to us. We are happy to talk with you about this tooling. Thanks and have a nice day.